tower.
The sun rests low in the sky, and the ground is crunching with fallen leaves. Summer is coming to a close, my lord. The Iron Throne beckons. Come, a great game awaits us. At long last, my lord. Come. We have only met recently. My name is Alistair Florent, an aide to Lord Stannis and your instructor in the ways of war. Before we begin, it is time I remind you of the forces that may come to oppose you on the battlefields of Westeros. The Greyjoys, a wretched band of raiders from the Iron Islands. Be wary of them, my lord, for they venture to the sea to reap what they desire. The Free Folk, as they call themselves, savages that descend from beyond the wall, bending and breaking the earth as they charge with their monstrous allies. The Men of the Watch, their sole duty is to the wall and its defense, not to any lord of the Seven Kingdoms. Tread carefully beneath the gaze of their war machines. Alas, the land already burns. The walls of the Starks march south in rage, beating down any bold enough to get between them and their prey. Yet, the coin and pride of the Lannisters is not to be taken lightly. Be warned, for this war may see us choose an ally. Dragons take to the skies once more. Daenerys Targaryen rides at the head of a war host of Dothraki and Unsullied. Keep your wits about you, lest a blade come from behind, or a wicked flame from above. At long last, your royal colors fly, my lord. House Baratheon, lord of the Stormlands, march with you. Rely on them, as your forces are trained in the use of heavy armor and massed infantry. Be warned, however. Both Lord Stannis and Lord Renly vie for the throne and the fealty of your blade. Let us see what awaits us in the camp. First and foremost, the soldiers who fight for the honor of the house. They come pre-assembled and colored for the faction they fight for, along with their movement trays and attachments that can accompany them into battle. 2 non-combat units to serve as your house's voice within castle walls, bringing a unique advantage to your battle line from off the battlefield. The combat and non-combat unit cards that will carry the point value, story, and all of the rules necessary to field the units and characters in your army. A deck of tactics cards, packed with the strategies of your house and your lord to aid you in battle. 10 d6s that bear your sigil and a d3, 10 dual-faced terrain pieces, 3 castle walls and 71 punch-out tokens, and to make sense of it all, the rulebook for playing A Song of Ice and Fire. To assemble your force, you will need the unit cards for your army. On the back, you will find their point value. The chosen battle size will notate the maximum amount of points a player can bring, and those points can be spent on combat units, non-combat units, and attachments for your army. For the Baratheon house, you will have wardens, sentinels, and stag knights available to your cause. These will make up the core of your army, and to aid them are attachments. Attachments are models that have their own point cost, and once paid, the attachment will take the place of the model on the first row of the tray, farthest to the left. The first attachment we will bring is the one true king, Lord Stannis Baratheon. Lord Stannis will be our commander for this battle, and as commander, he requires no points to be paid. Also, as commander, he provides his own selection of tactics cards, and now we must ensure that only soldiers loyal to Lord Stannis march to battle with him. A unit's loyalty will be noted on their unit card. Lord Stannis will accompany the Stag Knights, as only the finest can be trusted to protect the king. For the other units, we will have a Stag Knight Noble and 2 Master Wardens we can purchase. Paying their cost, we will place a Master Warden with each unit of Wardens, and the Stag Knight will accompany the unit of Sentinels. In addition to infantry, other types of combat units you can expect to see on the field of battle are cavalry, monsters, and war machines. Every house will have their strengths and weaknesses, along with their own selection of units from these types. Tread carefully, my lord. While House Baratheon has disciplined soldiers and strong warriors, I hear the free folk bring with them war mammoths and the aid of giants. But with word of danger comes word of victory in the castles and courts of the kingdoms. To this end, Lady Shira and myself are at your service. Once our point cost has been paid, we will not join you on the battlefield. Instead, listen for word of aid from the tactics board. From here, Lady Shira and I will carry your name high, while denying your foes the aid they require. My lord, please take cover. We are under attack. The Dothraki attack. It would appear that Daenerys Targaryen has arrived with her response to your claim to the throne. So be it. Men, to arms! Approached with a challenge, we shall muster our men to war. With all of our units selected and attachments distributed, Lord Stannis Baratheon has arrived to take on this great rival. A mission will need to be decided upon from the list provided in the rule book. And once selected, the mission will describe how to set up the board and what else will be needed from your supplies to play. The mission will show where the deployment zones are for your forces, where terrain can be placed, and where the objectives are to rest. Once the battlefield is built, both players will roll off to see who shall be the first to place their units, highest roll being the winner. And the winner will then select if they will be the first to place their units in deployment zone of their choice, or if they will let their opponent place first. The first player token will go to the player who did not select their deployment zone. Beginning with the player who chose their deployment zone, the players will alternate placing combat units within the deployment zone that are mapped out in the mission. However, be warned, my lord, for there is word amongst the courts of King's Landing that there are some forces notorious for starting a battle off the table, arriving when the tide of battle deems them necessary. Once all combat units are deployed, the might of House Baratheon is aided by the legacy left by the late King Robert. To harness the tactics and the playstyle of your army, we look to the tactics deck. The tactics deck is comprised of 20 cards. It will contain the tactics of your house and the strategies of the commander you have chosen. For you, my lord, set aside the cards that belong to the Lord Renly and add the cards bearing the name of Lord Stannis. Shuffle your deck and draw your first 3 cards. Once both players have drawn their cards and all combat units are deployed, the battle begins. Your horse, my lord. Now that you may see over the battlefield below, the game rounds may begin. Each round is divided into an activation phase and a cleanup phase. The activation phase is where the start of turn effects happen, and the player with the first player token will select the first unit they will choose to activate. To activate a unit, select either a non-combat unit or one of the many combat units under your command. When a combat unit is selected to activate, there are 6 actions it is able to perform: maneuver, march, charge, melee attack, ranged attack, and retreat. When a unit is selected to maneuver, the unit will pivot with its tray. It is able to pivot to any facing, so long as it does not end its pivot overlapping with any other units. Then the unit will be able to move equal to the move characteristic notated on its unit's card along its facing, which is determined by the arrow on the front of the unit's tray. Then once the movement is complete, the unit may pivot once again to a more advantageous position. When a unit is selected to march, they move twice their movement speed along their facing, then pivot so that they are not taken unaware by the threat before them. When a unit is selected to charge, they are first permitted a pivot, lining themselves up with the foe destined for their blades. Now, grab a d6 and give it a roll, and add it to the movement of your unit. Move the unit equal to the distance, and if the tray of the charging unit aligns with that of your target, then the charge was successful. Otherwise, the charge has been failed, forcing your soldiers to panic and giving your opponent a chance to respond on their turn. If you have maneuvered your troops well, you may be able to seize the chance to engage your enemy's flanks. The flanks are the left and right side of the tray, and the back of the tray away from the front-facing arrow is the rear. If the flanks are engaged, the defenders suffer -1 to their defense saves and panic test rolls. If the rear is engaged, they suffer a devastating -2 to defense saves and panic test rolls. The time has come to strike down the foe. When a unit is selected to attack in melee, the number of attacks a unit is able to have is notated on the unit card. You will see the weapon beneath the movement characteristic, a number with a plus sign next to it, and 3 numbers in colored squares. The 3 numbers relate to how many ranks are left in the unit. If a tray has a soldier in each of the 3 rows of the tray, the unit has full ranks and attacks with everything it has. If 2 rows remain in the unit, it attacks using the yellow number. If the unit is down to its final 4 soldiers, it attacks using the red number. Now, check to see how many soldiers still stand tall. Grab a number of d6s equal to their attacks. Now that our attacks are rolled, we must compare our result to the attack skill for the unit. The attack skill is the largest number with the plus sign next to it, meaning each die that meets or exceeds the number, the weapon is a successful hit, while the results that are lower did not hit and must be discarded. Now that we've got them on the defensive, they must roll a number of saves equal to our hits. Your opponent will now take a look at their unit card and look to the red and blue shield icon at the bottom left of the card. This number is what must be met or exceeded on the die for the save roll to be successful. Otherwise, the hit becomes a wound. The wounds that have gone through their save are taken from their unit, and some units, like cavalry and beasts, will have multiple wounds that must be cut through. In this instance, use the wound tokens to track how many have been taken or how many are left, whichever is preferred. After the attack sequence has resolved, the defenders must succeed a panic test. A panic test is the most common form of morale, to see if your soldiers have the nerve to stay in the fight. To perform a panic test, take a look back at the unit's card. The yellow and red banner icon in the bottom left is a unit's morale, and is taken into question as they lose men or as the tactics board progresses. Now, grab 2 dice and take into account any modifiers, either from flanking, character abilities, and so on. Each negative modifier makes the morale test higher, thus harder to complete, and when the time comes, throw the dice, and a matching or exceeding result is needed for the unit to pass. If the result is lower than the unit's leadership, they suffer an additional number of wounds equal to the difference. When a model is removed from a unit tray, always begin removing models from the farthest right of the last remaining rank. In doing so, the attachments in the combat units are always the last one to go. Or, in the instance of a unit that is in desperate need of aid, the retreat action is available. Friendly units are able to move freely through one another, so long as the trays do not end overlapping. To retreat, roll a d6 and add the result to the movement characteristic. A retreat move can only be completed by units that are engaged, and is a rare case of units being able to move not to their facing, as a unit that is retreating is able to move either backwards or sideways. Once the move's complete, the unit can pivot. The Dothraki have fired a ranged attack, allowing them to shift any direction 2 inches, and then firing attacks either happen at short or long range, as represented by the singular or double arrows next to the weapon, singular for short and double for long. When selecting a target to fire at, not only must they be within range, they must also be within line of sight. Line of sight is drawn from the front of the tray, the 2 lines at the corners of the tray forming the view of the unit. If the tray of the foe is within range and no other trays, friend or foe, are blocking the shot to the unit is a valid target. However, if a tray is blocking line of sight, then the target is no longer eligible. Incoming! They have rolled their attacks, and now we must roll to see if we can save our men from this onslaught. The time has come for me and Lady Shira to do our duties, my lord. To activate a non-combat unit, simply elect which one of us you have a mission for, and place us on one of the 5 spots on the tactics board. Once we claim a spot on the tactics board, the effect on the spot we have taken instantly activates. As well as with the courts of Westeros, each noble house and major player would like to have their say in who stakes a claim to the Iron Throne. Be wary, for as Lady Shira and I both hold our own masteries within the realms, the forces of Lady Daenerys have met us here as well. The battle has raged on and the board grows chaotic. As a method to help keep track of which units have already been activated, each starter box has a collection of tokens to help you keep track of conditions. There are activation tokens, panicked tokens, vulnerable tokens, weakened tokens, and order tokens. Some units will have orders that they can receive, triggered by an event that will be described on the unit card. To mark when a unit has used their orders, place a token, or remove one as the unit dictates. Tactics cards from your hand are used much the same way, being able to be played at the time the condition of the card is met. To win the game, each mission will describe its specific conditions for victory. However, the culmination of victory points and the absolute domination of the battlefield will always serve as the core of the game's win conditions. Once all units have been activated, we go to the cleanup phase, where victory points are scored, the tactics board is reset, activation tokens and influence effects are removed unless otherwise stated, and each player may freely discard tactics cards from their hand and draw back up to 3 if they have less than that many in their hand. Once all of this is completed, the turn marker proceeds a turn and the first player token is exchanged. Thus begins the second turn and the battle continues. Wars are long and arduous conflicts, my lord, but with the rich resources of your house, you can always call upon those who are more than happy to sell their lives for coin. The neutral units and heroes are available to every faction, so do not be afraid to supplement your army with the units where you may find your army to be weaker. Or you can shop online or in store at Tower of Games to purchase reinforcements for your claim to the Iron Throne. Starter boxes, units, and miniature painting supplies are all available to ensure that your colors fly proudly over the battlefield. shop online at towerofgames.com or in store at all Virginia Beach, Newport News, and soon Chesapeake locations.
You can also hang with us on our Discord server that will be linked below. Or, if you want to stay up to date on anything and everything Tower of Games, check out our YouTube channel, Facebook page, as well as our Twitch channel. Until next time, adventurers,